Ancient sands, heed my command and reclaim these relics of hatred!
What's going on, everybody? So, I want to go ahead and say up front that I've only watched like the X-Men movies, and I did watch some of the 90s cartoon, and I used to watch X-Men Evolution, but I don't remember it in depth and detail like a lot of people do. So, I've also never really read the comics. I think I've read maybe one or two comics off the top of my head. So, I thought that it would be fun to talk about X-Men 97 from the perspective of a person who is not really familiar with X-Men as far as like the comics and how that goes. And really with the cartoon from the 90s, I don't really remember a lot of it because it's been years. And I do mean years since I have watched it. So I just wanted to kind of sit down, talk with y'all. And the plan is, and I say plan because y'all know that sometimes your boy be kind of cutting up a little bit and he'll make a plan and the plan doesn't come to fruition, but we're going to try. We're going to try. It's going to be a personal challenge to ourselves. The plan is to release an episode of the podcast same day as the episode release on Disney Plus. And now you may be asking yourself, Galen, that's a little bit ambitious, ain't it, baby? Listen, I ain't got no job right now, so I'm just making plans. Worst case scenario, I'll just do what I gotta do later on that day or something like that. Like it may eventually have to be like next day release, depending on if I get a job. It may be like next day release then. But for right now, we're gonna plan on doing a same day release. Now, episode 4 released this past week. So what we're going to do to try to catch up is we're going to do Monday is going to be episode, well, the one you're listening to now is going to be episode 1 and 2. And then we're going to combine episode 3 and 4 into tomorrow's episode. And then Wednesday, we'll have our very first same day review of X-Men 97. So today, let's go ahead and talk about episodes 1 and 2. Now, the series premiere is called To Me, My X-Men. I'm assuming that, like, I know that somebody is gonna be like, "Are you for real right now?" But I'm assuming that that's like a line that Professor X will say. I don't know. I feel like I should know that, but I don't. So just bear with me. If I say something and it's not right or it sounds stupid, I don't know what to tell you. You're just gonna have to be okay. Now, I do also want to say that this is going to contain spoilers for the episode, so I'm going to assume that you either already know what's going to happen in the story or you've already watched the episode and you just want to hear me talk about it. In which case, I thank you. Listen, let's just go ahead and get into it. Into the very first episode, To Me, My X-Men. First and foremost, I was so sad when I found out that they done got Charles Xavier up out of here. They done sent the man to the upper and or lower room, whichever room he went to. They done got the man up out of here. I was like, wait a minute, did that happen on the show? I didn't know if that happened on the show. Like, this is making me want to go back and watch the 90s cartoon because I could not believe they got him up out of here. So he's out of here, and Cyclops is the one that's leading the team. And when we start the show, we see a young man being kidnapped by this Friends of Humanity. I think it was Friends of Humanity being kidnapped by this group. He's a young mutant. We learn a lot in this very first scene. It's kind of crazy if we being 100% honest with you, because like they talking about mutants were born to replace humans, and apparently these people are using mutants as target practice or something. And I was like, that is crazy that these people are actually doing this. And that's one thing that I love about X-Men is, and just from the things I remember, the things that I've like looked up and read and whatever else, because I don't know if y'all know this, but I have an obsession with trying to learn about characters of a series that I have no real intention of diving deep into sometimes. Like One Piece, I have no intention of watching One Piece. However, slash and as my friend Taylor would say. I love reading about the characters. And X-Men is no exception in that regard. Now the young man's name is Roberto, and I'm like him, baby. He was like, "Money is not an issue. You give me a price, and I'm gonna get up out of here." Like, if I had money, that would have been the first thing I would have said too. At first, I was kind of like, "Look at me, a snot nosed brat," and then I was like, "No." If you tell me that you finna do this and lock me up and whatever, yeah, how much? You tell me how much you need, and I will get out of your hair immediately. You can take the collar off, not take the collar off. It's completely up to you. But I'm finna go. And the guys that have him, one of them is like he didn't even use his power, so we don't know what his power is. And my boy is still just like, listen, I'm from such and such family. My dad is this and that. You tell me a price, we can write a check right now. And listen, survival mode, baby. Survival mode. That's all I'm gonna say. He makes a statement that I actually had to stop and pause it for a second because I was like, wow. When he said, I'm not like the rest of them, I'm one of the good ones. As a black person, that statement, I'm one of the good ones, it sent me because all I could think of is, when other groups will pick out a black person and be like, "Oh, you're not like the rest of them." And that one statement is so deep, and I think it speaks to such a deeper issue. And from what I've read about X-Men, they do a really good job of discussing real world issues in that way. And that line is one, baby, that's a whole discussion. That's an entire discussion. That's a whole thing in and of itself right there. That's literally an entirely different, not only episode, but kind of podcast. So I just had to stop and take a second and address that. When Aurora Monroe busted through that glass. First off, when she had the people seeing their breath and all of that, and they're like, "Wait a minute, what's going on?" And she comes in, "I am Storm, mistress of the elements." I said, "You better be mistress of the elements, baby." When I tell you, she came in and she ate that up. She cut up. And when the man was like, "We're not afraid of you," and she said, "Well, then you are a fool." I said, I said, "Now, Storm, did you have to eat that man up like that?" And then we just get the whooshing and washing, and then oh boy, is it Bishop? I think his name is Bishop. He comes in and he's like basically reading her, and it's like, how did that go for you? When that lady said I was trying to resolve it peacefully, I was like, "Ma'am, you busted in through the ceiling." You busted in through the ceiling and started shooting lightning from the sky. In what world did you think that was gonna be a peaceful resolve? Nah, she like me. What she thought was gonna happen was they was gonna be like, "Oh, we ain't fooling with her." Now, I love me some Storm now, and I'm not saying that's necessarily what she was actually saying. I am saying to you that I was tickled pink because I said, "Ma'am, you cutting up. Ma'am, you are 100% cutting up right now, and I 100% live for it. I will continue to live for it if it's the last thing I do." Now, Bishop, her Aurora and Bush, I know why I'm calling her Aurora like I know her. Like I go to her canasta club every other day. Storm and Bishop, just in that first scene, are my bays. Like they truly are my bays because they just look like they complemented each other so well. Do I have any real basis for that? No. I just love the fact that they were both just like blasting and still talking. And he was reading her in a very nice, calm way. And then I love the fact that he can like charge himself up. I think is what he was like. Not charge. I mean, there's a word for it, a phrase, I'm sure, but I don't know what the phrase is for it. It almost looked like he was doing kind of what Gambit can do because I know Gambit can do something with like kinetic energy or something like that. He can charge other things up. So I kind of feel like that's what Bishop was doing, like the reverse of that or something. I don't know. It looked cool. I know that. I know that. I know he was getting hit with stuff and then the energy he was sending that off. So I know that. I know that that was cool. And it was a fun scene. And then a look like something got hit, like a transformer box, or something, and it exploded and it knocked the two of them out. And I said, okay, okay, so y'all done knocked them out. Now what? Like, I don't know why I was so tickled by that. I was like, so y'all just done knocked these folks out, and they was up in here cutting up a minute ago, and now all of a sudden, mm, Cyclops is funny to me because you can tell that Scott Pilgrim versus the World Summers is feeling his oats in this episode. You can tell, like, from the way he saunters in, you can tell that he genuinely is feeling himself. Now, I won't lie, he does eat. He really does eat. And I didn't know that he could like control his energy blast like that. Clearly I knew he could control them because he got the visor on. Don't play with me like that. But what I'm saying is I didn't know that he could control like the intensity of it, and then like the movement of it and stuff like that. Like there was, I didn't know he could do all of that. So to me, he really was showing out. And I said, oh, okay. I said, okay, I'll let you be cocky. I'll let you be cocky. And when they got him with the thing, so then they get him in these cables, and they take his visor. He's like, no, no, I surrender. And then he's like, not. And he opens his eyes and just like blows the place up. So they also have like some sentinel arms there from the sentinels and whatever else, these large robotic creatures that are meant to, not creatures, robotic inventions, you know what I'm trying to say, that are meant to hunt mutants and things like that. So we go back to the X mansion, and Gambit is making beignets, and he is so unbothered. Like, these people have almost lost their life the night before, and Gambit is just making beignets. Let me tell you something. And if you're an innocent soul, you may need to close your ears for a second. I know that in his mind, he be bussin' Rogue down. Let me tell you something. I know that Remy be busting that woman down. He is so smooth. He is such a smooth operator. And just the way he speaks and the way he just is, baby, baby. I know Rogue can't do too much of nothing with nobody because of her little, her power. But baby, my God, we would have to try. Somebody gonna have to go get a latex suit or something, because it ain't no way he finna be up there talking like that. And then you think I'm not finna? Okay, all right, okay. We finna get some rubber gloves, and I'm gonna leave it at that. I'm gonna let you use your imagination. Because I know that man be getting it from the rooter to the tutor. But anyway, that ain't got nothing to do with nothing. I'm telling you, I was so tickled that he was so unbothered. And like Cyclops was even saying to him, you should have been there. And he was like, well, baby, my beignets. Like he basically was like, well, my beignets. I don't know what else to tell you. And then this person comes in and is basically looks just like Charles Xavier, and he's like talking as him, and then Cyclops is like, don't be a creep. And apparently this person's name is Morph, and Morph is just like walking around like that. And I was like, we need Jesus in the worst possible way. And I was so tickled. I was so tickled. I was so tickled. And Jean, let me tell you something. So Remy charges up this card, throws it at Scott, whatever, and it's gonna explode. Well, Jean catches it in a psychic bubble and then throws it outside. We switched the to her. I was gonna say the camera, but we switched to her, and she's got her hand on her head, and I was like, you had to put your hand on your head for that? You literally couldn't just like throw a hand up, or you couldn't do that mentally. You had to put your hand on your head for that. That required that. I don't know why I was so tickled with it, but I was very tickled. And then we go to the lab, right? And Roberto wakes up and he sees Hank, aka Beast. Beast is Beast is shady. Beast is shady. And I love how shady he is because the man is like, hi, and then Roberto's like, oh, very blue, very, very blue. And he's like, huh, an astute observation, my boy. I was like, yeah, my boy knows how to read. My guy knows how to read you to filth without ever even having to look at you, really, if he don't want to. And then Jubilee comes in and she calls that man a blue monkey, and I was like, "Oh, we just gonna move past that?" Because I mean, I don't know why it was so funny. I was like, "Not blue monkey." I was like, "Wouldn't he be more like a?" And then I was like, "Well, what would I call him? An ape, which is a monkey? Like what word would I have used in that moment?" And I was like, "Well, okay, just say marsupial. How about that? Just say marsupial, and then that way we can all be." And I love the way Storm speaks. She's like, Hank, how fares the boy? I love it. Because I remember in the original cartoon, I remember she used to cut up. I'm talking about that woman would cut up the way she would be up in there showing her tail. With the extraness when she would be calling down the thunder and the boom, she would be like I just remember her giving like these full on monologues and none of it really being necessary and her just kind of doing it because I guess she could because she's the mistress of the elements and who's gonna stop her? Roberto Roberto makes my ass itch a little bit, just a little bit, because I know he's spoiled and entitled, and that's supposed to be his, his shtick. But when he was like, "Oh, so now you're kidnapping me, or you're holding me hostage," and I was like, "Okay," but Jubilee is eating him alive. Jubilee is not letting him just do whatever he want to do. She is letting him have it. She's not letting him have his way, but she's letting him have it. And everybody else is just trying to be cute, but she is tearing this boy's head up. And this scene also makes me really like the way that they explain things because sometimes I think with a show, especially one that's kind of based on nostalgia, it can get a little too clunky with this exposition. Think about like the second Kingsman movie. The second Kingsman movie is like they didn't know how to just tell us something happened or show it to us. Like they literally would spend 15 minutes reminding us of another scene and whatever. But this one is like I feel like you don't have to necessarily have watched the previous show to or really know much about the universe. You kind of got to know a little bit about it. But they explain enough to you to where you're like, oh, okay, gotcha. That's who this is and that is and whatever. And because apparently they have a 10 episode season. So again, they don't have time to just be like womp womp womp, running around. Wolverine is another one that's on that boy's head. Wolverine is not letting that boy live. Let me tell you something. We'll get back to Wolverine. When Cyclops and Jean are talking to that lady from the UN, and he's like, I thought y'all got rid of the Sentinel technology. And she said, and we did. And then she just stopped talking. Like she said, okay, your turn now. She was like, point blank, period. She was like, baby, we did our part. I don't know what else to tell you. She was like, if you have a problem with it, yeah, I don't know what to tell you. You better go find a manager because I'm not the one. And it is hilarious to me that this woman is working out while she's talking to these people. Like she's actually probably like at her house on a treadmill, working out, talking to them. I understand because my first thing was that Cyclops is a jerk. But then I was like, no, I understand why he's upset. Because girl, if you don't get off if you don't get off now and let me just and before we move on, the person that she's telling them about, I thought they were saying Oliver, but that I was hearing it wrong. But no, it's Bolivar. His name is Bolivar, which I'm gonna assume is like I'm just gonna make an assumption and I'm just gonna leave it at that because I genuinely was like, what is happening here? Like what's going on? What's going on? So we go to Jean. And Jean and Scott are talking after the conversation with the UN lady. The lady who plays Jean is so dramatic, and it is so funny when she's like, "Oh, do you remember when we would go down to the lake after training? And Professor Xavier would be like, oh, you need to come up here." Well, I mean, no, Scott was the one that was like, and he would say, "That's 5 demerits, young man." And she was like, "Oh, no, I'm going to be my own person." And Scott was like, "Hey, calm down." I didn't sound like that. Scott is like, all right, calm down, calm down. You're cutting up a little bit now, and you need to stop. You need to stop it because I'm not gonna play this game with you. It was so funny, and she wants them to leave the team. He's like, I don't know about all of that because they still need me, uh. And he does not want to leave, but she's pregnant, and she wants to go enjoy their family and whatnot. So I get it. So we go outside. Jubilee has thrown Wolverine because he's scared off Roberto. And Cyclops and Wolverine have this hatred for each other that is one of the funniest things I've ever seen. Because when you realize that it's over Jean, it makes it that much funnier. Like when you realize that it's over Jean. Not that there's anything wrong with her. It's just that like the two of them already kind of are like at odds with each other personality wise. But then when you realize the fact that they really hate each other like this is because of Jean, is like, grow up. So he tells this man, put that nose to use and find him. And I'm like, oh my God. And then Jean is like, do it for me, Logan, please. And I'm, girl, shut up. So they go to this club. They find him, they all up in there. And I feel so bad for Rogue because she's watching everybody at the party. It's a rave. And she's watching everybody like kiss each other and hold hands and be close to each other. And Gambit is like, any man worth his salts or whatever would risk it for you, baby. But girl, we let me hush. Let me be quiet because we would have to figure something out, and that's all I'm gonna say. I'm gonna just be quiet. Morph is hilarious because Morph was like morphed into Jean and was like, "Ugh, it must be so difficult watching us with our exhausting perfection." Morph was eating her up in the voice department because Morph was really showing how dramatic that lady be. Like Morph was really getting it down to a T, and I lived. Ru- Jubilee finds Roberto. My girl is gone in the brain. She is standing in the middle of a dance floor, hands just a twizzling and a popping and a copping and a sopping. I said, girl, you are in public. Turn that down. I mean, she is in the middle of the dance floor just juking, just the hands gone. And I'm like, girl, baby, that man got her feeling herself. And about to feel something else is what it's given because my girl is gone in the brain. I completely forgot Rogue has super strength. I wrote that down, and I know that that was a weird like kind of segue into the next thing, but I completely forgot that Rogue has super strength because she like destroys the thing that some of the people from the I was gonna say Family Matters from the Friends of Humanity that they had, and she tears it up. And I was like, oh my God! And then I completely forgot. So I have written down here because at this point, Cyclops goes to the man who took out Professor Xavier, and the man says a line, and he says, "Tolerance is extinction." And I wrote down that line sums up a lot that's wrong with the world. Because he's basically talking about how if they just let mutants continue to go, then eventually they're going to replace them and they can't let that happen. And all I could think that whole scene is like, you have to be hateful to be afraid that someone you but that comes from being so used to being in the majority that you don't know how to handle someone potentially having something other than like having a step up or equality, not even a step up, equality. You don't even want someone to be equal to you because you're scared that they're going to surpass you. I- Girl, again, a whole other discussion because some people may say that's just natural human instinct. I don't know. That'll be a good conversation piece. So the whole point of this conversation is Scott trying to, like, he's offering him a plea deal, and he's saying, like, if you give us the information on where this person is with these sentinels, then you'll get a reduced sentence. The man is saying, no, I'm not gonna do that, whatever, whatever. So he's like, okay, all right. I see Professor X, he would have been cute with you. I'm not gonna be cute. And so then Jean, from the comfort of her own home with Cerebro, is in this man's mind. I'm all up in your mind. Beyonce, please do not sue me. And she's in there, she's getting the information, and she's like, something's wrong. And and then she has like a vision of, I guess, a sentinel. I think it was a sentinel destroying everything and everybody being gone. And she was like, we need to find them now. And she's like gripping at her baby. And I was like, girl, you finna go into early labor. You finna push the baby out. Like, you're literally about to squeeze the baby out like a like toothpaste in the thing. Stop. Like, stop squeezing at that baby like that. But anyway, so then we are in the X jet and we're headed on over to get everything done, and we're, going to go find a man in the desert or whatever. And while they're flying, a sentinel attacks and breaks, it messes up the jet, whatever. Scott, Cyclops does his thing and he, whoop, takes it out. And then the people that can fly, so Rogue, Storm, and then morphs into some person who can fly, they save the people who can't. And then I'm looking like, okay, so y'all just gonna let Cyclops fall, huh? And it was so funny because in my mind, all I could think was that he was thinking like, oh, that's cute. That was a cute little something, something you did right there. And he's like, good job, everybody. And then he lets loose his laser beam thing, energy beam. And it hits the ground, and he hits it with such intensity that he slows his fall to the ground. Girl, you could have bought me for about 15 cents because I did not know he could do that. He ate that up. Do you understand me when I tell you he ate that up? But let me tell you something. At one point, like, everybody is whatever. Everybody, as everybody's coming down to the ground, I know Scott felt so cunt. I know he felt so cunt. He was like, to me, my X-Men. And he was feeling himself. He was. No one can tell me that he was not feeling himself in that moment. Where's Storm at? Because why is Storm not here? Why is she? Is my girl okay? Like, what? Did she drop the people that she had to drop off, and then she went home? Like, what is happening? Where did my girl go? Well, now we know where she went. Let me tell you something. The whole fight scene is cute. Beast was unnecessary with his quips and whatever else, but I loved it. Cyclops ate, but Storm devoured. Whatever little cute something something here and there that he did, she took it, spiced it up, and then ate it alive. When that woman came walking across that desert and the lightning was hitting the sand and turned it into glass, and she walked across the glass, and then the lightning shattered the glass. There is literally, there is no way. There is no way. There is literally no way. When she did that, I said, I would have, what powers I'm gonna use? What power am I gonna use at that point? Because, girl, how am I gonna follow it up? How am I gonna follow that up? You can't. You just can't. And she just casually takes all of them out, and then they just standing there. And then the big one comes out and whatever else. And I'm like, oh. Now, there is one thing that happened in this scene that was really cool. I didn't know that Gambit could charge up Wolverine's claws. I found that to be so interesting because I had no idea that that could happen. And I said, oh, wow, baby, these people's powers are something else. Why have I not been more heavily invested in this universe before? Why is this something that I'm just now doing? And when they're taking old boy off, he's talking about Trask off. He's like, oh, humanity's gonna be obsolete. Shut up. Shut up. Shut up. Talking about you don't know what it feels like. Baby, you literally have machines that are meant to eradicate them. And you telling them they don't know what it feels. Hush. Be quiet. Just be quiet. So Jubilee is talking to what's that boy's name, y'all? Roberto. And after that, and we go back and whatever else, and Roberto and Jubilee are talking, so he's safe now, so he can leave. And he says something to her. He says, I don't want to be a mutant. I don't even want to be myself. And I was like, oh my God, that was deep. That was deep. That's the kind of thing like you get tattooed on yourself. But now we're at the end of the episode, and I don't know why or what made me write this down. I'm not 100% sure. Actually, I think because they were playing basketball. It's because they were playing basketball, but I just wrote Gambit is so fine. Like, I just, if you look at my notes, it's just literally Gambit is so fine. Gambit is so fine. It's just like Gambit, Gambit, Gambit. I'm like, baby, we gotta, we gotta get it together. But he is, oh my God, oh my God. He was like, that ain't Gambit's only power. Oh, and I'd like to see it. Then somebody breaks into the X mansion. For some reason, Beast looks at his little watch and says that it says that they broke in here and then. I was like, they don't say that. You know we can see that, right? That's not what that says. You know we can see that. But anyway, that ain't got nothing to do with them. They get in there, Magneto was there. Now why so then he lets them know, like, hey, I'm the owner of this now. Charles left me all of this, and he floats over the little book or whatever. And I say little, it was a huge book. It was literally a book. And I was like, why is the professor's whatchamacallit like this? Like, why is his last will and testament a book? That don't make no sense. You got to, but then I have to remember this man is rich. Like, the man is rich and he has all kinds of everything. So yeah, of course he's going, like, you know what I'm saying? So that's the end of episode 1. And everybody is gooped and gagged that Magneto is now in charge of the X-Men. He has all of the professor's money. He owns the house. He owns the school. Like, all of this is his. And now we just waiting for episode 2. Oof. My God. Y'all, that episode was so good. It was delightfully delicious. So before we get into episode 2, let's take a quick little break to hear from our sponsor. I'm just playing. We ain't got no sponsor. I'm just practicing for the future because one day, baby, we're gonna have us a sponsor. We're gonna have us something. We're gonna have us a special guest host. We're gonna have something. So I'm just getting a little practice in. That's all. So episode 2 is titled Mutant Liberation Begins. This episode had quite a bit happening. So essentially, what happens in this episode is we're starting to come to terms with the fact that Magneto is now leading the X-Men. It opens with him saving a human child that was stuck on a Ferris wheel that was about to collapse. And he also stops the Ferris wheel from collapsing on top of some people that were at a fair. As we're going on, we're starting to see him do these, good things, good deeds. He saves the Morlocks who are down under the sewer. And that scene, oh child, like, I don't understand how people can just be so hateful and then be like, oh well, we gotta do what we gotta do to protect ourselves, and then just be like, yeah, like they can be the worst versions of themselves and just say it's out of a need to protect themselves. But anyway, so then we go back to the X Mansion and we see the X-Men sitting around, they're talking, they're trying to figure out whether they can even trust Magneto in the first place. Like, they're not even worried about should we follow him. It's literally should we trust him. And Rogue is kind of team Magneto and Gambit is looking at her like, excuse me? So Magneto comes in and he tells them that the Morlocks are going to be going to Genosha. And my thing with that he says is, I'm very disappointed that none of you or Charles thought to use his wealth to do this before. And on that, like, if you know you got the ability to do that, then why you not? But anyway, so the team is kind of telling him we don't know whether we can trust you, and his whole thing is that the professor said, "Baby, I'm leaving it to him, so y'all really ain't got no choice." And they're kind of having this discussion with him that you can't make them trust you. You have to earn the trust. And I think it's starting to kind of like maybe hit him. I think he knows it, but he's hard-headed. He wants to do what he's trying to do. And then we go to Jean and Storm. They're talking. Jean reveals that she wishes that her baby would be born human because she doesn't want him to have to go through the trials and tribulations of being a mutant. Storm says that sometimes she thinks about being human and thinks about what it must be like, but she's very happy and blessed essentially that her gifts have been able to help her save all these people and save the world, and it's brought her to their little family that they have, their X-Men family, and she considers Jean a sister. And the whole scene really is nice, and I think it's really good to see that they have that friendship that goes deeper than just a friendship. They genuinely have a sisterhood between the two of them. Then we go to Magneto and Rogue. Listen, then we go to Magneto and Rogue. So she's telling him, like, baby, you gotta earn their trust. You can't just come up in here telling them what they gonna do, what they not gonna do. And he's like, I wonder what they would think if they knew about us. And she's like, hey, 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 Buster, hold up that cooter brown, bring that dream back because that's got to stay between us. And at that time, after they have their little discussion, some helicopters come outside. And the helicopters are there for Magneto, and they're telling him, like, hey, you need to come with us because, baby, you a war criminal, darling. Just because you saying you leading the X-Men now, that don't mean nothing, baby. It's time for you to come on. Like, you got to go. And he agrees to go with them because he's hoping that it'll help to foster some sort of a trust between them and foster a real relationship. And by them, I do mean the UN and the X-Men. So it's kind of like a twofer and the world, essentially. Like, pretty much, he's thinking that him giving himself up and standing what he assumes is going to be a fair trial is going to help him in the long run. So before the trial, we see Jean and Wolverine at the house, and Jean had no idea that Cyclops was taking the X-Men to go protect Magneto. Like, she had no idea that this was happening. And they're just watching on TV as the same blonde lady that was exercising while she was talking to Scott, to Cyclops and Jean, that she's like listing off every single bad thing Magneto has done, which is understandable because, mind you, he essentially has tried to like crush humanity. So it's like, yeah, I'm not really shocked that we're doing this at this point in time. So we get to the trial, and Magneto was given the opportunity to speak. He's given the opportunity to say what he has to say. And what I love about that moment is he points out his own history and the hypocrisy from people within that history. He is a part of the Jewish community, and what he's pointing out is his people were hunted. And then once he found out he was a mutant, those same people hunted him alongside the people that had hunted them. So it's like this continuous cycle of, like he points out, being different. If you have a different skin color, you're a different gender, a different race, like just anything about you that makes you stand out from, the quote unquote dominant people, and you're enemy number one. And he's given this very rousing speech, and the judges really kind of aren't getting it, and it's not really sinking in. So at the same time that they're doing all of this, some protesters they come in and they attack essentially. And one person, they showed him earlier, and he has this gun, and it has like a charge to it, and it only has one, so he only gets one shot. But we don't necessarily know what it does. We just know that he only has one shot. And even though X-Men have powers, the people out front are tearing them up. Like, them folks getting their tail beat. And then of course Jean done went into labor, because what is Jean gonna do? She gonna give birth. So she gives birth. Logan is driving her through the city on the curb, no less. He's about to hit people and he don't even care, because he's just trying to get Jean to the hospital. So she up here putting her hand on her head like she got a migraine, moving people here and yonder so that he don't take nobody out. She done tow the man's car up and everything. So they get to the hospital, and she telepathically lets Scott know, like, hey, I'm finna, crap this baby out. And then the doctor is like, hey, 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 not here. Because if she lose control of her powers, baby, I don't know where y'all got to go, but y'all got to get up out of here. So Rogue brings Cyclops, and Rogue, I didn't even know Rogue could like absorb information and experiences from people. So that is so cool. And she learns how to, do the baby, whatever else. So she helps Jean deliver her baby. Now back at the trial, here's the thing. The man comes in, right? Like Storm and Magneto tearing these folks up. Like they done caged them in, whatever else. We live in our best life. So the man comes in with the gun, and he points it at Magneto, and he goes and he shoots, and this energy beam comes out. Well, Storm sees it and she goes to save Magneto. Well, when the blast hits her, it takes her powers. Magneto gets so upset. He gets so mad and angry. And they're like, we didn't know this was going to happen. This was not part of our plan. This ain't got nothing to do with us. And he does not think that they're telling the truth, or he at least thinks like this is the point that he's trying to make. So he takes them up, up, up to the moon, just about. Like literally, he takes them like into the atmosphere, and he is like he's crying. He is so upset. And his thing is, Charles always tried to teach him peace and acceptance of humans. And he's like, I'm gonna follow my friend's, advice and his dream and his path. But please don't put me in a position where I am gonna have to show you the other side of me, essentially. And y'all, the end scene, the end of the episode, the end of the episode has them folks cut up. Rogue and okay, so Storm leaves. And as Jean is reading her letter, and as Storm is narrating her own letter initially, Rogue and Magneto hook up. Jean is up here crying over her tea. Morph is having to console Wolverine. But it's just so much going on. And then at the very end of the episode, a woman who looks just like Jean comes to the door, screams that she needs the X-Men, and then she faints. Oh my God. Oh my God. Y'all. Y'all, when I tell you that this episode was so good, I almost feel like I don't typically like things that are an hour long because my attention span is not good. However, I will say I would be okay if they had decided to make these episodes an hour long, because I really do feel like these episodes could benefit from it, because I don't think that they're necessarily jam packing stuff, but I do think there are some scenes where I'm like, I would have loved to have seen a little bit more of this. But then at the same time, there's a lot of at the same times happening, because I don't think that they move fast at this point necessarily. It's just, it's more. I just wish that this was a little bit more paced out so that we kind of had more room to breathe, because there's a lot happening at once. There's Jean going into labor, and then there's Storm, and then there's the trial itself, and there's just all these little bits and bobs and pieces that are happening. And I just feel like you have to like go back and watch and go back. You almost have to go back and watch it just so you can reconsume it, and just so you can really take it in. Because baby, this episode 8, and I listen, the notes that I have are really tickling me. So this is kind of going to be, I think, like the observation part of the podcast. Um this is, I think, where we're just going to kind of talk about some things from the episode that I saw. Listen, let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. I am from the South. I am from the South, and I love me a good old Southern character that's done well. I'm gonna need Rogue to stop. Cause she is sounding like Sandy Cheeks at this point. She is sounding like Sandy Cheeks. Well, call me a biscuit and butter me up in some gravy. Girl, shut up. Hush. We get it. You from the South. We understand. Simmer down. Simmer down. Nagambit, for some reason, talks about himself in the, is it third person, first person, third person, whatever. I don't know. He refers to himself, and so it's like by name, and it, that's kind of whatever. But and he was making beignets. Okay, yeah, fine. That's stereotypically Louisiana. I'm from Louisiana, so it's like, that's fine. But it's like Rogue takes it to the next level. Well, you can, what did she say? She was like, well, you can, all of us got a pass that won't squeak no matter how much shine, or no, how much spit we put on. Girl, shut up. Just say all of us have a pass. That's all you have to say. It shouldn't have taken you 15 minutes to say something that you literally could have said in like 10 words. Hush. But you know what? Baby girl is going up for Magneto. Like literally, I am telling you that from the first moment I turned that the show on, like she was looking at Magneto like, hmm, bet. And Magneto has a new costume. That's what I was gonna say too. He has a new costume, and for some reason, it's like this sleek velvet, like purple. I don't even know what's happening. I just said, you know what? If you can be old and eat a costume up like that, do it. Hair laid. I don't know how much Aquanet and hairspray he got up in there, but I live for it. And the costume looks good. You do what you got to do. With a big M, he got his M. He said, "Baby, this is who I am." I love Magneto because he is so shady. That man is shady. When he told him that he was disappointed that they, hadn't thought to do that before, I was like, okay. But baby, when Scott got up to say something and Magneto said, "I was under the welcome impression that you and Mrs. Summers will be leaving," girl, you could have bought me for $1. I am telling you, the way I would have probably slapped him. At that point, I gotta slap you because what you mean? You're not gonna play in my face like that. He played in that man's face, and you know what? Scott better not say nothing about it because if he does, you just let that man play in your face, you and your wife's face, and your unborn baby. So at this point, I don't even know if I respect you as a leader because how you just gonna let that man play you like that? But that's neither here nor is it there. And speaking of Jean, I absolutely love the dynamic between her and Storm. And I love that they weren't just talking like, oh, we're just old friend. No, like this is somebody I trust. This is somebody I respect because that is a huge thing for Jean to have thought. That was a huge, huge thing for her to have thought that she wanted her baby to be born human. Because imagine how long it's taken her to accept what being a mutant means for her and accept the fact that her life is completely different. And the fact that she wants her baby to be born, especially after they've been fighting this whole time for equality, and she wants her baby to be born. Baby, listen, as a man that's part of the Rainbow Coalition, I understand that completely because there are so many days I find myself just saying, like, I wish that I could just have that, like, heterosexual experience and see what it's like just to not have to worry about how are people going to see you with this and how are people going to see you with that. I anyway, child, that one hit a little too close to home. No, 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 no. A Magneto and Rogue. I know. I was very confused on how he was able to turn, like how she could touch him and not whatever, right? Because I was like, how? I don't get it. But one of my friends and some of my followers on not followers, mutuals on Twitter basically explained that like Magneto has such control over his power that he can like control the something some kind of something, he can control something and basically I guess give him like himself like an exo skin. I don't know how to describe it. I don't know how to describe it because I barely understand it myself, but it makes sense at the same time. So like I don't know how to explain it. However, slash and I do get the gist of it. So I was like, I'm not trying to be petty. And I love me some Gambit. Oh, I feel so bad for Gambit because his little heart is just broken when he saw him whatchamacallit. Ay. I if I was Rogue, I would be want with Magneto too. Number one, the man is fine. And then number two, you telling me I have not known the touch of another person. And God only knows how long. And then not only can I touch this person, feel this person, but they fine on top of everything else. Baby, we will be tearing Professor Xavier's office up too. I will be tearing it up too. So I'm not even mad at the girl. I'm not mad at that lady. Go ahead, get it in. And speaking of heartbroken, my poor Wolverine slash Logan is so sad. Like, he loves himself some Jean. He loves that lady. He loves that lady so bad. And it hurts. You can tell it hurt. Not only when he was the one that had to drive her to the hospital, I said, I'm not gonna. I already got to watch you take my lady friend from me. Now you telling me that I gotta actually go take her to the hospital to deliver y'all's baby? No. Not today. Not in my book. Not, I don't think so. And I feel bad for him. I feel bad for him. And I love that Morph is constantly trying to uplift him and kind of just be a friend. Just be a friend. I love that Morph is just being a friend. One thing about this episode that is interesting to me is how completely out of touch the humans are. Like, the humans have absolutely no, I don't know what word I'm looking for. I don't know what phrase I'm looking for because it's like they've convinced themselves that mutants are literally just animals. And when the one lady was like, "Do you think humans can sleep at night knowing that monsters like you are under here?" And I'm like, "Baby, they live in the sewer. They're not hunting. That's where they live." Because there's no place for them up top. There's nowhere for them to go. They don't have a place to be safe. And you talking about while they down there, baby, what are you, what, I'm not understanding. I'm not understanding. I need you to help me put two and two together. I need you to walk me down Sesame Street and help me understand this. And it's the same thing with the judges at the trial. When they found out that the protesters were after them and Magneto, or after Magneto and them, they were like, "Wait, what did we do?" And I'm like, you have a man locked up right now in front of you. And then you basically telling him that you've been eradicating his kind because it's a necessity. Because you trying to make sure you're good. And you're gonna actually stand there and be like, oh, you're gonna stand there and be like, well, here's the thing about it. I don't know why they after us. That ain't got nothing to do with me. And what Magneto says in his speech, I think perfectly captures the hypocrisy that we see in this episode from these people. And they hate they hate mutants because they exist. There is no, they can try to hide it behind, oh, we got we're just trying to make sure everyone is safe. We're just trying to make sure this, we're just trying to make sure that, blah 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 blah. No, you hate these people because they're different. That's what it is. You literally hate mutants because they were born mutants. It could be someone you know and love, and if they were born a mutant and you were just finding out, you would hate them because they're a mutant. And it's not hard to watch this show because I have a place for it in my head, but I think especially with the way the world has always been, but is on more display now because of social media and stuff like that. It's kind of hard to watch it because it's like, Jesus, here we are. But I think that's an important discussion to have internally. And I really can see this being the pathway into having a discussion with your child or teenager if they, you let them watch this kind of stuff. Not that this is horrible, but you know what I'm saying. Like, especially your teenager. Why am I saying this? I'm saying this because as a black man, if I were to have children today, I know that at some point I would have to have the discussion with them of how they need to act in certain situations. If you get pulled over, just try to be as just keep your eyes straight. Like I would have to have those kind of discussions with my children now. And I hate that we have to have a good segue into conversations like that or good pathways into it. But unfortunately, I could see this being a good way to be like, this kind of stuff happens to us. Um Whoever us is in this scenario, I'm speaking from from the perspective of a black man, but that's what I love about TV and movies, and one of the reasons that I get so passionate about it is you never know how deep something can go and how a show or a movie or something like that can really change someone's perspective on life and give them the ability to say something that they never would have known to say or known how to say. And that's why I really wanted to cover X-Men, is because as I'm trying to move into talking about different things and different media outside of Charmed, like hit me like a ton of bricks, because I I just feel like it's really important for us all to take a moment sometimes and have perspective on who we are and what we face in this world. So I know that got heavy, and I'm sorry. We're finishing up. We're wrapping up, I promise. Let's talk about the big kind of chunk of this. Storm losing her powers. I wanted to I wanted to meet her and I wanted to ask her, girl, why didn't you just hit him with a gust of wind or something? Like, girl, throw some wind, some lightning, throw some rain, some girl, you could have done nothing. You just had to fly. You just had to fly up over there. You couldn't have thrown nothing. You couldn't have done a little something. You couldn't have whatever. That's what you had to do. That's what you had to do. Okay, that don't make no sense to me. But if that makes sense to you, then hey, that's what counts. That's what matters. And I'm just like, girl, ma'am, come on now. But hey, my girl said she got to do what she got to do, and it's like she was so scared, and I could not imagine something that is a part of you just not being there anymore. When she said like she couldn't feel the moisture in the air and things like that, like things that were so innate to her, when she said she couldn't feel that, I could only imagine how scary that must be. Something that's your everyday, that's a constant, that you've come to accept and love about yourself and control and use for good, and it's become such a huge part of your identity, and it's just not there. I would Baby, my heart broke for the lady. And then when she left, I said, well, girl, not you said we walk in two different worlds now. That's my kind of carrying on. She said, baby, we walk in two different worlds now. She said, I don't know what to tell you. And she got right on that bus and she left. She was she said, I'm leaving on this midnight train to Georgia. And she left. That lady got up out of there and left. And I don't know. It was very sad. And then having already watched the next couple of episodes, I'm like, I just want my girl to be a good. I just want my girl to, you know, be I want her to wake up and this be a fever dream, but it's not for right now. It's not. And when the other Jean person, whatever, it came to the door, y'all, somebody on social media, and I wish I could find who it was, said, I screamed. They said that's probably the real Jean because she came in fainting. Y'all, I promise you, I hollered because I said, wait a minute, because the other lady really didn't faint. She really hadn't fainted. She really has not fainted the whole time. So maybe that's not the real Jean. I am telling you, I was so tickled. I was so tickled. So these are my little thoughts on episodes 1 and 2 of X-Men 97. I'll see y'all back tomorrow for episodes 3 and 4. And I hope that if you don't do anything else, if you already have Disney Plus, or you can get a free trial, child, something, just give it a whack. Give it a shot. Just see how you like it, because I personally think that it's worth it. So, thank you for sitting here with me. Thank you for sitting here and listening to me yip yap, and just for being my company through this experience. So, as always, if you would like to support me, please feel free to head on over to my Patreon at Power of G. We have a $3 tier, which gives you access to our group chat, as well as our weekly Zoom watch parties. And you get a host of other perks. I could not think of the word to save my life. Also, we now have merch. So you can head on over to, I think it's Galen Dash Roberts Fourth Wall. It's on Fourth Wall, and you can search me at Power of G. And it's in the link tree in my bio. So you can find me there. We have a mug and we have 2 shirts currently. So go ahead and get your Power of G merch. Please consider going to follow me on TikTok and subscribing to my YouTube so you can keep up with everything that I have going on. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your life to listen. Thank you for taking the time out of your life to sit here with me. I will see you later. Y'all have a great day, a great morning, a great afternoon, a great evening, or whatever it is, wherever you are. See you later.